Do you think you're free? Think carefully before you answer that, because by the end of this video, you'll see how what feels like freedom is actually the most sophisticated trap ever designed, and you've been building it yourself, one scroll at a time. You wake up, and before your eyes fully adjust to the light, your hand is already moving. Just a reflex. Phone in palm, thumb scrolling, searching for something new, something to pull you out of the fog of yourself. Then coffee, another chemical nudge, while a YouTube short plays in the background because the silence of your own kitchen feels too heavy. On your commute, it continues. Podcasts filling the space between songs. Instagram at every red light, that cold blue glow reflecting off your face. Notifications that never stop pinging, each one pulling you back into the noise. And then, when you finally get a moment where nothing is demanding your attention, where it's just you and the quiet, what happens? A discomfort rises, a tightness in your chest, an emptiness so unbearable, so suffocating, that it forces you to reach for another distraction, another hit, anything to avoid sitting with what's underneath. Which one of these habits has you trapped? Drop it in the comments. Your answer might help someone else finally see their own cage. Pleasure itself isn't the enemy. It's evolutionary, a reward system, food, connection, safety. But here's the question that should follow you into the night. What happens when pleasure stops being a tool and becomes the cage itself? When the need to feel something good, anything good, at all times becomes the invisible bars around your life. When you realize you can't stop reaching for the next fix, the next scroll, the next distraction, what does that make you? Aldous Huxley predicted this nearly a century ago. Everyone obsesses over Orwell's 1984. Surveillance, brutality, fear as control. But Huxley saw something far more insidious, something that should terrify you more. He warned us of a future where people wouldn't need to be forced into obedience. They'd be so completely drowned in pleasurable stimuli, so perpetually entertained, that the thought of rebellion would never even surface. A world where slavery wouldn't need chains or guns or threats, where people would love their own servitude, where the cage would feel like home. This isn't fiction anymore, it's your life. Now look around you. A society that medicates every uncomfortable feeling before it can even form, that scrolls past every difficult thought, that drowns sadness in streaming binges and boredom in infinite feeds. Anything that feels bad gets buried under dopamine hits before you even register what you're running from. But what's the cost? What are you actually trading away when you build your entire existence around never feeling pain? Is this relentless pursuit of instant happiness actually liberating you? Or is it the most sophisticated prison ever designed, one you maintain yourself, one you defend, one you can't imagine leaving? In this video, we'll explore how you've been conditioned to seek pleasure as a form of control, and why this dependency, this addiction to feeling good, is transforming you into something you never imagined you'd become. A voluntary slave. If you think you're in control of your own mind, if you believe your choices are truly yours, then you need to keep watching. Because maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that you never were in control. That every choice you thought you made was already decided for you. Not even close to free. The perfect form of slavery doesn't need chains. It doesn't require torture, threats, or eyes watching from the shadows. It only needs something devastatingly simple, something you'll defend as your right. Pleasure. When pleasure becomes the axis your life rotates around, servitude disguises itself as freedom. You think you're choosing, you think you're living the way you want to live, but you're not. You're performing a script that was written for you long before you were born, refined by algorithms that know you better than you know yourself. This is exactly what Huxley predicted in Brave New World. Imagine a society where people never question anything because they're constantly entertained. Where the search for meaning gets replaced by consuming the next episode, the next product, the next distraction. Where pleasure isn't a choice, it's a requirement, a way of life so normalized that any alternative seems insane. In Huxley's dystopia, individuals are conditioned from birth to avoid anything that generates discomfort. Whenever a negative feeling arises, an unease, frustration, an existential doubt, the solution is always within reach. Soma, the perfect drug. One dose and the discomfort dissolves. Everyone stays anesthetized, everyone stays docile, everyone stays happy. But here's the question that should send a chill down your spine. Is this world really fiction? Think about your actual life. Whenever you feel boredom, sadness, frustration, what's your first reaction? Do you stop and sit with that feeling, or do you immediately reach for your phone? Instagram, Netflix, Pornhub. You know the rest. Your phone is a slot machine in your pocket, and every scroll is a pull of the lever, chasing the next small win, the next hit that might fill the void. We live in the age of instant gratification. Any discomfort can be smothered in seconds. One tap, one swipe, one click. You never have to face the void, you just fill it. Another video, another like, another purchase arriving in a brown box tomorrow, another dose to make the bad feeling disappear before you even understand what it was trying to tell you. And here's what makes this so perfectly insidious. It feels like a choice. No one's forcing you to watch Netflix until the sun comes up. No one's making you lose entire afternoons to TikTok. No authority figure is standing over you with a weapon saying, buy this, eat that, keep scrolling. But if this is truly a choice, if you're really in control of your own behavior, why is it so impossibly hard to stop? The answer is conditioning. When you get used to seeking immediate pleasure to relieve any form of discomfort, your brain rewires itself at a fundamental level. This becomes the only solution. Feel bad, get a hit of dopamine, feel empty, consume something, feel bored, scroll until the feeling goes numb. Over time, you lose the ability to deal with boredom, with silence, with your own thoughts. Your mind becomes allergic to itself. You can't sit in a quiet room for 10 minutes without feeling like the walls are closing in. And without realizing it, without even noticing the transformation, you become exactly what Huxley predicted, a happy servant, imprisoned not by force, but by pleasure, trapped not by what you hate, but by what you love. Have you ever wondered why it's so impossibly hard to stop? Why, even when you know you should be working on something that matters, something real, your thumb is already opening Instagram. Your brain is already begging, literally begging, for a notification, a new video, a new stimulus. Just one more scroll, just one more hit. This doesn't happen by chance. This isn't a weakness in you. You've been trained for it. From the moment we're born, we're conditioned to avoid discomfort at all costs. School doesn't teach us to think critically. It teaches us to memorize answers, regurgitate them on tests, move on. The workplace doesn't want reflection, it wants production. Clock in, work, clock out, don't ask why. An entertainment culture? It delivers an endless stream of distractions so we never stop long enough to ask, why am I living like this? The sum of all this creates a world where the real threat isn't some dictator banning free speech. The real threat is that you've completely lost interest in seeking freedom in the first place. Huxley understood this with terrifying clarity. In Brave New World, citizens didn't need brutal repression. No secret police, no midnight interrogations. They were taught to love their own slavery. From childhood, they underwent hypnopedia, messages whispered during sleep, shaping their beliefs without them knowing. Phrases like, everyone belongs to everyone, and a gram of soma solves everything were etched into their subconscious, repeated until they became unquestionable truth. They grew up believing that happiness lay in conformity, that thinking too deeply was dangerous, that suffering served no purpose. Now think about how this plays out today. Conditioning doesn't happen in your sleep anymore. It happens through Instagram algorithms deciding what you see, through autoplay cues that keep you watching, through push notifications engineered to spike your dopamine at calculated intervals. Every time your phone vibrates, your brain releases dopamine, a tiny reward. Every time a TikTok delivers instant information without requiring you to think, you get used to effortless consumption. And every time you're rewarded for going along with it, through likes, comments, validation, you reinforce the belief that this is how life should be lived. The result? A generation incapable of being alone with their own thoughts, incapable of handling discomfort, incapable of questioning anything because they've lost the capacity for critical thinking. You don't need a dictatorship when people willingly reject any idea that requires mental effort, but here's where it gets really unsettling. When we avoid discomfort at all costs, we become more fragile, more manipulable. If this is making sense to you, if you're starting to see the shape of the trap you're in, click the subscribe button. Constant pleasure weakens us, and manufactured happiness transforms us into passive beings, waiting for the next dose. Imagine a world where no one suffers, where pain is erased instantly, where sadness, frustration, anxiety, all of it vanishes at the first sign of discomfort. It sounds like paradise, doesn't it? What happens to someone who never faces difficulty? What happens to an entire generation programmed to avoid any discomfort, any challenge, any moment that requires them to be stronger than they currently are? They become weak, brittle, hollowed out. Huxley understood this with chilling precision. In Brave New World, happiness was guaranteed by soma, the perfect drug. No side effects, no come down, no morning after, just immediate relief, instant comfort, perpetual numbness. But what did this happiness actually cost them? It meant no one knew how to deal with pain, with frustration, with their own consciousness, their own thoughts, the weight of their own existence. Any uncomfortable thought was dissolved in a chemical dose of comfort before it could fully form. Life became an endless loop of shallow pleasures, sex without intimacy, entertainment without meaning, consumption without satisfaction, connection without vulnerability. And anything that required effort, anything that demanded discomfort, anything real, it was seen as a threat to the stability of the entire system. Now look at your world, look at what you've built. We may not have soma, but we have Instagram delivering instant validation through hearts from strangers, Tinder eliminating rejection before it begins, reducing human connection to a swipe, Netflix algorithms serving exactly what we want before we even know we want it, removing the friction of choice. Uber Eats, so you never have to cook, never have to plan, never have to delay gratification for even an hour. Amazon Prime, so you never have to wait, never have to want, never have to sit with desire unfulfilled. Everything designed with surgical precision to erase discomfort, eliminate gaps, remove any need for effort or patience or struggle. But this constant escape from pain comes at a brutal cost you're only beginning to understand. Your psychological strength, your resilience, your capacity to endure. Pain has a purpose. Suffering shapes resilience. Frustration teaches growth. Difficulty forces evolution. When you face something genuinely hard and push through it, when you sit with discomfort and don't run, you become stronger, more capable, someone who can handle what life throws at you without breaking. But when everything is softened, when every challenge is algorithmically removed, when every uncomfortable feeling gets medicated away with another scroll, another video, another purchase, we become increasingly fragile, breakable, unable to handle even minor friction. Today, the smallest discomfort feels unbearable, catastrophic. A minor failure becomes an existential crisis that requires therapy. A small conflict feels like the end of the world. Anything requiring patience gets immediately discarded because we've been trained to take the path of least resistance, instant relief, quick fixes, zero friction. And this makes us controllable in ways previous generations couldn't even imagine. A society of resilient individuals who can sit with discomfort and learn from it will never be docile. They ask questions. They push back. They refuse manipulation. They can't be bought. But a society of emotionally dependent people who need constant stimulation to avoid the emptiness inside them, who flee from any form of suffering, who can't sit alone with their thoughts for 5 minutes without drowning, that society will obey. It will be manipulable, the perfect population for those who want power without using force. This is how the trap closes around you. What looks like freedom, the ability to avoid all suffering and live in constant comfort, is the prison. You become a slave to your need for pleasure, dependent on the very forces controlling you, and you defend it. You argue for it. You can't imagine life without it. But there is a way out, if you're willing to see it. To escape, you need to understand the difference between pleasure and purpose. Because while one enslaves, the other liberates. While one weakens, the other builds something that can't be taken from you. What are you really seeking in life? Happiness or meaning? Pleasure or purpose? The answer may seem obvious. Of course you want happiness. Of course you want to feel good. Everyone does. But have you truly stopped to consider what that actually means? What you're actually chasing? You've been trained to believe happiness is the ultimate goal, the thing worth sacrificing everything else to achieve. But what does this culture actually offer as happiness? What's the product they're selling? An endless sequence of fleeting pleasures that leave you emptier each time. Likes on Instagram that feel good for 30 seconds before the void returns. Impulsive Amazon orders that arrive and disappoint within the hour. Netflix binges that blur into forgotten noise by morning. All of it keeps you momentarily satisfied, momentarily distracted, but never for long, never long enough. Pleasure is always temporary, always fleeting. It needs constant renewal, or the emptiness returns, deeper each time. You get a like, feel good for a heartbeat, then need another. Watch a video, get a hit, then need the next one before the high fades. The cycle never stops. The hunger never ends. You're always chasing, always needing, always one scroll away from feeling okay. Now think about the most significant moments of your life, the experiences that actually shaped who you are, that made you stronger, wiser, more capable of enduring. That gave you something real. Were they moments of instant pleasure, or were they moments of struggle, effort, pain, and overcoming something you didn't think you could? Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that human beings cannot survive without purpose. Even in concentration camps, even facing death, even stripped of everything, those who found meaning in their suffering were the ones who survived, who kept their sanity when everyone around them was losing theirs, who refused to break even when breaking would have been easier. Here's the paradox that changes everything if you let it. The pursuit of constant pleasure weakens you, makes you fragile, dependent, controllable. But the pursuit of purpose strengthens you, makes you resilient, independent, unbreakable. Pleasure is easy, immediate, addictive. You don't work for it. You don't earn it. You just consume and move to the next thing, empty again, hungry again. Purpose requires effort, discipline, resilience. It demands you sit with discomfort, push through difficulty, build something that takes time, that requires patience, that won't give you instant gratification. It demands you face pain and not run. But unlike pleasure, purpose doesn't disappear once the effect wears off. It builds something within you that compounds, that grows, that becomes unshakable. It gives you a reason to keep going when everything else falls apart. It makes life feel meaningful instead of empty. But here's what they don't want you to realize, what they can't afford for you to see. Purpose takes time to build. It requires introspection, effort, sacrifice, and most dangerously for the system, it requires resistance to suffering. You have to be willing to feel uncomfortable, to sit with difficulty, to say no to immediate gratification. All of this goes against the logic of instant consumption, against the economic model that depends on your constant need. Someone who finds purpose doesn't need constant distractions. They don't compulsively fill every second with entertainment. They can't be bought with cheap dopamine hits. They can sit in a quiet room and feel at peace with themselves. And that makes them dangerous. Dangerous to a system that profits from emotional dependence. A person with purpose asks questions, refuses control, can't be manipulated. So you're constantly bombarded with stimuli pulling you away from this search. Notifications, autoplay, infinite scroll, recommended for you, personalized content. All of it algorithmically designed to keep you distracted, dependent, docile. To keep you from ever asking the question, what do I actually want from this life? If you feel something is missing in your life, if there's a hollowness you can't name, the answer isn't more pleasure. It's less. The path forward isn't seeking more distractions, it's eliminating them. Ask yourself, what truly moves you? What would you do if you weren't afraid? Are you living off disposable pleasures, consuming and forgetting? Or are you building something real? Now that you understand how the relentless pursuit of pleasure keeps you trapped, the most important question arises, the one that determines everything. How do you escape? How do you regain control of your own mind when everything around you, every system, every algorithm, every cultural force is designed to keep you distracted, doped, and emotionally dependent. First, understand this with absolute clarity. The fight won't be easy. The system is engineered for you to fail. It wants you seeking quick pleasures, feeding algorithms with your attention, consuming endlessly. But there is a way out if you're willing to take it. It starts with awareness, with seeing the game being played against you. The first strategy is strategic deprivation of pleasure, not asceticism, not rejecting all joy forever, but consciously, deliberately regulating your exposure to the things that have you hooked. The problem isn't pleasure itself, it's that it's being weaponized against you. When you deprive yourself of certain pleasures for a period, whether it's Instagram, junk food, compulsive Netflix binges, or pornography, something profound shifts. Your brain recalibrates, resets. It starts finding satisfaction in smaller things. A real conversation where someone actually sees you. A walk without headphones. A moment of silence that doesn't feel like suffocation. The desperate craving for artificial stimulation begins to weaken. You realize you don't actually need it. The second step is rebuilding your tolerance for discomfort. To regain autonomy, you must relearn how to deal with boredom, frustration, and the absence of constant stimulation. You have to remember how to be human. Allow yourself to be silent. Disconnect from the information flood. Exist without filling every moment with distraction, without medicating every uncomfortable feeling. At first, it will be brutal. Your brain, accustomed to constant dopamine spikes, will scream at you. It will make you anxious, restless, desperate. But if you resist, if you sit with that discomfort instead of running, you'll discover something powerful. Discomfort doesn't kill you, it strengthens you. It teaches you that you can handle more than you thought. It builds psychological resilience. It makes you someone who isn't controlled by every passing feeling. The third step is cultivating critical thinking. Questioning everything. Ask yourself, why do I need to distract myself constantly? Who profits from my addiction to pleasure? What could I be building, creating, becoming if I weren't trapped in this cycle? What am I avoiding by staying distracted? The more you question, the more you'll realize your habits weren't chosen by you. They were programmed, designed by people you'll never meet, engineered to keep you compliant. But only those who ask these questions can begin to rewrite their own existence. The fourth step, the most important, is replacing pleasure with purpose. The search for meaning is the true antidote to the slavery of instant gratification, the only real escape. Ask yourself, what actually matters to me underneath all the noise? What would I build if no one was watching? How do I want to spend the limited time I have? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? What feels real? These are difficult questions. They require thought, honesty, but they're the only questions worth answering. Here's the problem you need to prepare for. Even as you break free, everyone around you remains trapped. And when you change, when you stop playing along, something inevitable happens. People see you differently. Some will admire you, but others will reject you, resent you, try to pull you back down. Because when you free yourself, you become a mirror reflecting what they refuse to see in themselves. And people hate mirrors. If you've made it this far, something inside you has already begun to awaken, to shift. You've realized the relentless pursuit of pleasure isn't freedom, it's conditioning, a trap designed so well you defend it, and you understand now that control doesn't require chains, just the illusion of choice. Just enough comfort that you never think to leave. But now that you see it, now that you can't unsee it, the question becomes, what will you do with this knowledge? Escaping requires more than willpower. It means swimming against the current while everyone else floats downstream. Rejecting the easy path when easy is all anyone talks about. Accepting that real freedom often comes with loneliness and resistance. Because when you stop distracting yourself, you begin to see things clearly. And when you see clearly, you realize everyone around you is still blind, still trapped, still running from discomfort, still chasing dopamine, still living on autopilot. Some will admire your transformation. They'll see something different in your eyes and feel inspired. Others will reject it entirely. They'll feel uncomfortable watching you change because your freedom threatens their illusion. It reminds them they're still trapped, and that makes them defensive. They'll try to pull you back, convince you nothing's actually wrong, that life is meant to be enjoyed without overthinking, without questioning, without discomfort, that you should just relax and consume like everyone else, that you're being dramatic, extreme, ridiculous. But you know the truth now. You've seen behind the curtain. Pleasure without purpose is just another form of slavery. Comfort without meaning is just a softer cage. And freedom, real freedom, requires you to be willing to suffer for something that matters. The choice is yours. It's always been yours, even when you couldn't see it. You can continue as before, distracting yourself, seeking the next dopamine hit, ignoring the emptiness growing inside you, pretending everything is fine. And one day you'll look back and realize you didn't live a life, you just consumed one. Or you can take back control, build something real, become someone who can't be bought, distracted, or controlled. Someone who knows why they're here. I want to know, what will you choose? Have you felt trapped in this cycle? Have you noticed how pleasure is used to control you, to keep you passive, to keep you weak? Leave a comment below and share your experience. Because questioning is the first step to freedom, and freedom is the only thing worth fighting for.